morning. Hope to find everybody wide awake here in Miami and excited to share with you a little bit of our vision for the future. And where I'd like to start really is, put in context what's been going on at HP. This last fall we announced that we'd actually split Hewlett-Packard, the founder of Silicon Valley. We would split it into two companies. Both of them will be about $55 billion. Both of them a Fortune 50 company in and of themselves. And one of those entities will be HP Incorporated. I'll be the CTO for that entity, and so what I'd like to do is talk to you about our vision, talk about printing and personal systems, where we are today, the directions that we're going. And when we stand back and we look at, where the world is going and where we're going to play from a printing and personal system standpoint, you have to start with really understanding things that are going on in the world, because it is a radically changing world today. And we're at the forefront of some very interesting developments that are going to create new opportunities for us. There will soon be, almost 8 billion people on the planet, and that population is changing radically. We have an aging population, a maturing population in the mature world. We have whole new generations of people, kids who are growing up today who, have grown up with basically a phone in their hand. And then we have wealth moving to the emerging markets and creating new opportunities in places, that have certainly needed it. And then we've seen a fundamental change in things like how we manufacture products with the emergence of things like 3D printing. And radically changing how we do distribution, where you can sit on a couch and you can browse the products that you're looking for and you can order them instantly and they show up at your door. And all of this has changed because we allowed ourselves now to come into a period of greater collaboration, where collaboration is king, social is king, and where we have makers who can create brand new things for us, things that we could only dream of. And all of these things come together, and we basically are finding that there's a blending between technology and where technology is going and our physical world and the things that we do every day. And that really leads to what our vision is from a printing and personal system standpoint at Hewlett-Packard. It is this blended reality, blending of the physical and the digital worlds, where it's suddenly we have physical things that we do every day. It could be in the enterprise, it could be in the consumer side, where we take those things and technology becomes a part of us. We use it, we integrate it, we wear it. It becomes the sensors that are in the environments. Those sensors are connected back up to networks that do big data analytics that deliver things back to us. And that technology shift, we think, is a fundamental change going forward. And that is where we're focused. So this technology shift really blends the physical, these are experiences themselves, with core technologies that we see emerging. And there's 4 of them here that I'd highlight. They're the ones that we actually focus on within Hewlett-Packard. One, Internet of Things. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. I do think when we talk about Internet of Things, we tend to be even more restrictive. It's not just the things, it's Internet of everything. It's everyday physical objects that don't have technology embedded in them that will actually be connected up to Internet services. And I'll speak a little bit about that. It's 3D transformation. We tend to know this as 3D printing, but I think that's a limited way to look at it, and I want to talk to you about our vision for how we see that is going to evolve, the transformation of that. Hypermobility. It's the move from not only a screen and a keyboard, moving into tablets, phablets, phones, but it's actually moving into the things that we wear, the clothing that we wear, embedded on us, embedded in us. It is a radical change over the next 10 years. And then it's the smart machines. It's the things we see today in primitive forms like a drone, or the vacuum cleaner, or the automated lawnmower. But that is just the sign of things to come, where machines will become much more of an assistant to us. And all of these are only going to be made possible in the truest form if we can marry them up with immersive and contextual experiences, where we actually put human being at the forefront of those experiences, and we marry them. So this is what I would like to talk to you about. This is our vision of blended reality. And I'm going to focus in on two things. I'll start with 3D transformation, and then we're going to talk about Internet of Things. So 3D transformation, the notion's pretty simple, and that is, on the input side of things, we have to create a more natural, intuitive way in which we interact with everyday objects. Now, this could be as simple as physical objects we use today, and how do we take them online, bring them into a digital world, or it could be how do we more easily create physical objects in a 3D world, pull them online, edit, change, compose, protect, publish, sell, and turn back around and print them out in a 3D instantiation. So this is the end-to-end view of where we see 3D transformation going. So let's take a look at the two pieces of this, the front and the back. On the front end, we think there will be a radical change in how we interface with physical objects, where we can take physical items and we can actually pull them in a more natural way than just using a simple keyboard and mouse. This past fall, we introduced the very first of these products of what will be an entire line I'll share with you. But that product is called Sprout. And Sprout just takes a lot of everyday current technologies. It's not so much about the technology itself, but it takes those technologies and it integrates it into a much more natural, immersive experience. And I can truly say, probably the greatest revolution in computing since the invention of the PC. So, to get an idea of that, let's take a look at Sprout. So that's Sprout. That's available today. Actually went on sale in the fall. But that is just the first of what is a whole new platform and a series of products you're going to watch us come out with. And we'll extend this whole notion of where you're actually taking physical objects, making it simpler to create them, to use them, and scan them. And we will push it into a whole set of products in the mobile space. It'll focus on SMB and the creators. It'll focus on commercial. And some of the commercial ones, I think, are going to be some of the more exciting ones where we can actually take an interface like this, a more natural way to interact with things, and to create powerful commercial solutions around it, where we'll have professional 3D graphics, where we'll have precision, natural input of how you actually design, where you'll be able to design from scratch, build up, and you can actually build models that will end up being 3D items that you can turn out and print. Okay? So a whole new platform on the front end of this. So let's switch, and let's talk about the back end. So if you have a natural way to bring it in, now you have to get it out. Today, we have 3D printers, and certainly the thing that everybody gets very amazed at, wow, 3D printing, how the heck do they do that? And what I want to do is try and simplify that for you. Okay? So today, I'll walk you through the three basic technologies that we have, and I'll talk to you about the one that's going to win. There are essentially four main inhibitors today for 3D printing. Speed, incredibly slow. If you've ever used one, you're talking multiple hours to print out a part. Quality, the quality of the parts is limited in terms of what you can do. They tend to be a single color, and they tend to be of not the greatest quality of material itself. It's very expensive to do it. The cost is not in the physical product itself, it's in the materials. And they tend to be a closed platform where you have a hard time for other people to come in and innovate. All four of these we're going to address at HP. So let's talk about the fundamental technologies. So basic tutorial here. There are two basic technologies used today, kind of variants of these around, but one of them is known as material extrusion. Second is known as laser sintering, and the third one that we introduced, that we obviously have a ton of patents around, is around multi-jet fusion. So let's dive in and look a little bit about what each of these is about. So starting with material extrusion, the idea of material extrusion is actually quite simple. What it really is a glue gun on an XY table. And it runs a set of string or plastic back up to a melting head. That melting head melts it and then traces a pattern across a surface. And you can see, very slow. You've got to do it one little bead at a time. You've got to create one layer at a time, and you have to build it up. And you're limited in terms of the quality of it. Now, laser sintering, the other approach, solves some of those. It certainly gives you better quality, but what it does is takes a laser, you put a bed of material, powder material out, you take a laser, you shoot it on the surface, you melt it, essentially, fuse that material into one, and then you trace that entire level until you have a whole level done, and after it is fused, then you actually lay another set of powder down, and you come back with a laser. Well, it's expensive. Lasers cost a lot. It's slow, still serial, and it's very hot. You've got to do something about the heat. Enter multi-jet fusion. Very simple. Lay down a layer of pattern, come across it in one sweep, and print all of the layer at once. And I'll talk to you about how you do that, and then come back and fuse it. 10 times faster than existing technologies today. This gives you an idea, taking one gear that we were printing, and how fast you could do that with multi-jet fusion versus the other possibilities here. But not only is it fast, but we can fundamentally change the properties of the material itself. In 2D space, we tend to refer to them as pixels. And we can, change the color of the pixel. Well, in 3D space, we call them voxels. And voxels can have all sorts of properties. It could be color, it could be texture, it could be other things like this. So with multi-jet fusion, and here again, it really is multi-jet fusion that enables this, we can do things like change the individual color anywhere in that physical object. We fire 300 million drops per second. We do it at a 21 micron pitch accuracy, and we can control every single dot in there with a different color. So now you have the ability to build parts that have a continuous gradation of color where you can change it all along the way. But we're not limited by color. Certainly, you can change the color itself, but those voxel properties can do other things, such as we can change the surface properties. It can be smooth. It could be rough. We can change the translucency. It could be solid. It could be transparent. We can change elasticity and strength. It could be a solid part. It could be a rubbery part. We can change the conductivity. We can print electronics. And we can change materials. So we can do plastics of all variety. We can do ceramics, and we'll eventually do metals. Altogether, what you have the ability to do is control at a level we've never had before the actual creation of parts. Now, if we pull all this together and you take a professional Sprout on the front end or a maker version of Sprout on the front end and a much more complex 3D printing, what you have is fundamentally the next industrial revolution. So for the last 150 years, You know, we've lived in, the Industrial Revolution, and that Industrial Revolution is very simple. We take raw materials on the front end, we figure out how we stage them, we figure out where we store them, we try and bring them just in time to a manufacturing facility where we line it up in a row, and we either use machines or we use people, and we create a part, and then we take it and we figure out how we stage it on the back end in distribution centers and staging areas on retail shelves. Well, all of that is about to be disrupted. It may take 10 years, but it will happen. Because now what you have the ability to do, design the part, edit, modify it, and turn around and print it out immediately. That is a $10.5 trillion market, manufacturing today. Think about that number. $10.5 trillion. The U.S. economy is $16 trillion. Okay? So we are at a very interesting stage in technology where we now have the ability to go change and create the new Industrial Revolution. So what does that mean? What does that look like? Let's look at what we think the future holds.
HP's 3D printing technology enables the world to realize the full potential of 3D printing in fully functional parts. HP functional agents could control texture, friction, strength, elasticity, electrical properties, thermal properties, and more. Imagine a single part with stiffness optimized in some areas, elasticity in others, or wear resistance and friction customized where needed. Or imagine printing a complete electromechanical module in a single 3D build without requiring further assembly. The list of future possibilities seems endless.
So that's our vision of 3D transformation, what we think is going to happen here over the next 10 years, and certainly, through our products, where we're driving both on the front end and the back end to make that a reality. So that is 3D transformation. What I want to do is shift gears, and I'm going to talk about another one where we're investing in, and that is Internet of Things. Well, that's pretty common. I think we all, certainly know that, though I think we probably have a slightly different take of what's going to happen in that market. So let's talk about Internet of Things. Idea is simple. Here again, I got a physical environment, a physical area, and it is going to end up being, brought together with a combination of sensors in the environment or on ourselves. It's brought into, the digital space, and then we operate on it with big data analytics, and then we turn back around and we deliver services, information, control back into the environment in a way that allows us to change, interact more effectively, with the environment itself. Here again, another version of blended reality, how we blend physical and digital. So what this is going to enable is a whole slew of changes that will happen in the market. And when you look at what's happening, the numbers become quite staggering, right? In 2010, we had, roughly 300 million devices. Most of them at the time were PCs. We obviously had phones coming in, smartphones really taking off at that time. But things were fundamentally driven by content, by commerce. And when we come into the present day in 2014, that has changed radically. We now have 3 billion, might even be a little underestimated, but we have 3 billion devices connected up to the Internet, driven predominantly by mobile, driven by tablets, phablets, phones. And now it's not only, the content, the commerce, but it's creating community. It's that social network. But by 2016, which is a mere, couple years, a year and a half down the road here, you really are looking at, over 30 billion devices connecting up. Think about that. That's a 10x increase in a very short period of time. And the nature of those devices is changing. It's not only all the things before, but it's now context. It is the context in which that technology is operating. And so we're moving from a world where it's simply, glass slabs, where all of us are staring at a screen, whether it's on a PC, tablet, phablet, phone, but we're moving into an era of enchanted objects, where those objects are embedded on us, or they're in the environment itself. And it's going to transform all nature of our life. Certainly in the enterprise, it's going to change things where, you come in, you have a wearable on you, It notices it, it opens the door, you come in, it figures out the lighting system is all connected with it. You go into a room, the room opens up, the projector turns on. Information for you is delivered to you at that time for where you are. Your personal assistant, your virtual personal assistant can deliver information to you, right? It will fundamentally change enterprise today. And it will do it in the home, where you come home, it knows you're coming home, it turns the temperature up. You come in the house, it turns the TV on, it puts it on the station you want, it delivers, it turns the lights on in the way you like them, and then it can deliver information to you based on what you like, or your smart, robot, your smart machine itself can do tasks for you. If you haven't seen it, there's a lot of very interesting ones. We obviously know things like Roomba, but some of the more interesting ones I've seen lately are actually a drink maker, where it's a physical machine and it actually makes a drink for you. So we're going to see a set of these things that are going to transform enterprise and home. But if we think of the technology and we're limited by it, I think we look at the transformation in much too limited of a way. And so at HP, what we believe is it will be the Internet of everything around us. It will not necessarily be that technology was embedded in that object. Okay? It will be chairs. It will be the furniture. It will be physical things that don't have technology in them. So let me take an example of a real set of products that we're driving and solutions that we're driving. We call it live paper or live docs. Very simple idea, and that is paper, instantiated medium. It can be items sitting in front of you, or it could be other documents you created, that those are actually associated with Internet services. So you can imagine a scenario. Let's take the construction worker who's working on site, building a building. He's got his printouts sitting in front of them. He's going through them to figure out, all right, I've got what's going on this wall right here. He comes to that area. He can see the picture on the drawing, but he doesn't understand it relative to what he's seeing. So he can take his camera, he can take his phone, his tablet, or whatever device he might happen to be using. He can aim it at that. It images it, recognizes the image, comes back up to the Internet, traverses back through the firewall into the entity, the construction company, finds the right drawing, pulls that drawing out, brings it back and delivers it back to the person on the site, opens it up to that place, realizes that the version he had was 2 versions out of date, brings him the current one, opens it up, and he sees the details there. So you go from a physical object that had no technology embedded in it into a service and the ability to operate and bring it back down. Now, that's only the tip of the iceberg, because you can imagine now legal documents where an attorney who lives in a world of contracts and paper, where you can actually tell that that contract was the right contract, where you can go back up and find related information to it because you have a way to manage all those documents, and you can go back and print the latest document as well. So this is just one simple instantiation of what we think is going to happen when you actually start associating physical objects back with services in the cloud itself. Here again, blending the physical with the digital. So at HP, as we've approached the Internet of Things, and we have a set of solutions we've already launched, you'll see a set of them come out over the next few years here. We've taken 4 fundamental approaches, and I do think they're key to winning in this space. The first one is to look beyond the product, to not try and go figure out the next techie whiz thing to do. And a simple example of that is in the wearable space, where there's a big chase for how do you go create that really high-tech fashion thing that sits on your watch that is multiple colors and is all about the technology. We think it's fundamentally the wrong approach. We think to win in here, what you have to do is say, what are people doing with this? What do people really want? And what people want is, in the case, let's take a watch, people who buy watches love watches. They buy a watch because it makes a personal fashion statement about who they are. They like that brand. They like how it looks. And so what we did is we focused on building a watch first that somebody would buy because they like the watch. And then we use technology to supplement. So it provides a little bit of information without the technology overcoming it and look like you have a phone strapped on your wrist. The second big thing is you got to know intimately what your customer wants, even when they can't express it. So a very good example of this is some work we did with Tesco, a large grocer who obviously has regular stores like every other grocer in the world. But what they were trying to do is reach a unique population. In this case, that the young person living in a city who is moving back and forth quickly and doesn't have time to actually get into their grocery store. So what they did is they used our large graphics printers who can print on buildings and cars and the like, and we printed out an image of their grocery store, and we stuck that image on the walls in a subway. And then we associated that with a service. So now what the person does is they come in the subway, they have a phone, they can aim at the objects they see on the wall, whatever it is, and every one they aim at, they buy. They buy it, and it ends up delivered to their home. So it's looking at what the customer wants, even though they would have never, you could have never asked them, and they would have told you this, but you're being able to intuit what the customer really needs and predict that. The third one is trying to obliterate the mundane, right? And this is I think is going to be one of the big key movers in the IoT space. That happens with simple things like Roomba, right? Rather than having to vacuum every day, you have a little machine, and it obliterates the mundane. But it also happens in the example I was using with paper, where you have paper and you have interaction with paper, and so much of what we do, is built on that. And then once I have it, how do I associate it back? How do I simplify that and make that easy and intuitive to use so it becomes, get rid of the mundane tasks and automate it for people? And finally, it is earning the trust of that customer and to create more natural user interfaces so that we're not, inhibited by keyboard and Control-Alt-Delete and right mouse click, but it's much more of an intuitive way in which you interact with that technology. So it becomes much more natural the way you would do it in a physical world. So in pulling it all back together, our vision at Hewlett-Packard is one of a blended reality, one that blends our physical world and our digital world. And for me, that comes back really to our childhood when we're kids. Because when we were kids, we believed everything was possible, right? You could strap on that cape, you could put on that mask, and you were Superman. And that's what we are really focused on at HP today, is how do we take those dreams, those hopes, the way you think things should work, how do we take that physical instantiation and blend it in a much more natural way to create a solution that people care about? Thank you very much.